welcome to the Happy Psychic Podcast. I am your host, your guiding light, Gemma Lonsdale. And this week I am joined by Dr.Elsbeth Meuth and Freddy Zental Weaver, who have assisted thousands of couples and singles, helping them to create lasting intimacy and fulfillment in their lives. They are featured on Showtime's documentary series, Sexual Healing, and they are in the Emmy Award-winning NBC show, TantraNova, and that is in addition to being best-selling authors of Sexual Enlightenment as well. Their organisation is TantraNova, and I really encourage you to stay, listen, and really enjoy the journey that they're taking us on with this. And you can also make some use of the freebie that they have included as well. The link is in the show notes, and I hope that you enjoy the show. So today I am joined by Dr. Elsbeth Meuth and Freddy Zental. It is wonderful to have both of you here.
Great to be here. Thanks for having us on your program.
Yeah, it's great. I'm very, very excited about this. You know, I have wanted to do something touching on sexual intimacy and relationships for quite some time. So it's really exciting to have you guys on here. This is a topic that I have been super eager to cover, really, from a personal level as well. But I know that some of my listeners will be very eager to see what comes about from it. So the first thing that I was really curious about was understanding really the connection between sexual intimacy, whether that's with ourselves or another person, and spirituality on the whole.
Wow. Great question. I love the question. Thank you so much, Gemma. You know, usually sexual and spiritual don't go in the same phrase. We actually, the way we were brought up, or through the world religions or cultures, they are supposed to be separate. So one belongs to the bedroom, the sexual, and the spiritual belongs to the church or the temple or the synagogue. So where we come from is that this is our temple here. My physical body, my emotional body, and my spiritual body, because we all are earthly and heavenly beings. That is how we came into this world. And in this body, we experience it. So we actually wrote a book which is called Sexual Enlightenment. Again, this juxtaposition. And in the practice we teach, which is informed by Tantra that comes from East India, we learn how to connect our physical sexual self with our love and heart self and with our mental and spiritual self in an experience so that we can flow between these dimensions. And no dimension is more important than the other. Because if we just focus on the spiritual, we miss that we were brought into this world through sexual energy. Without it, none of us would be sitting here and talking and listening. So how would it be to connect consciously that life-giving energy that is sexual in nature with our heart energy and with our spiritual being? And we just love to be able to share with you, Emma, and your audience about that, and open eyes and open hearts and open our body.
It's funny that you talk about, the whole, this is our temple, our physical and emotional and spiritual well-being, because whenever I have been on my spiritual path, I am single, so I've been really by myself for the last 5 years, and but my connection to myself has deepened naturally as I have been on my healing journey, which has been very unexpected for me. Whenever we talk about sexual intimacy and even arousal and things like that, and I know that they're not always, hand in hand, but, I have just experienced a whole other level of the connection that I've had with myself when it comes to sexual intimacy compared to what I had before I really started going on this journey, which I just is mind-blowing. It's absolutely mind-blowing.
Very nice. But I can't think of anything more, mind-blowing than the sexual experience for most people. And, whether you're doing consciousness work or not, when we're in that energy, we're more open, loving, vulnerable, receptive. Chemically, we're changed, more endorphins, serotonin, oxytocin, the feel-good hormones. So we're in an altered state of consciousness. And, you don't have to be conscious of anything. It just leads you there. So what we've been doing at TantraNova Institute in Chicago and all over the world for the last 22 years are teaching specific distinctions in how to bring consciousness to this altered state as a doorway to seeing what we don't see about what we most deeply want to create. Mm-hmm. And so it allows us in this altered state to get out of our own way, because a lot of that stuff that gives us what we say we don't want, that if there's nobody out there but us that we're doing, then there's something we're not seeing about what we're creating. So in that altered state, we're able to get more deeply connected to the frequency, the emotion, the story, the belief around creating something that we most deeply desire. So there's a lot you can do with sex. Forever we've been procreating, creating life, and the last 100 or so years recreating with the development of contraceptives. And so what we're teaching is how to co-create with this creative, intelligent manifestation.
That's really interesting, because, I think that so many of us, especially if we're not on a spiritual journey as well, sex is really viewed as like a physical act, and that's it. It's the physical part, and we don't always think of the spiritual aspect of it. And I think, it's hard because I can only really talk on behalf of myself. I can't speak on behalf of everyone, but I'm thinking if I have experienced this, then many other people surely will have experienced something similar. And I have always yearned for something deeper, that deeper connection, that, that mind-blowing something. But that often came about in situations where, it wasn't just a physical act. And it's crazy how forming the deeper connection to myself has really helped me see that as I have went on this spiritual journey.
Very nice.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I was actually looking at one of the testimonials on your website, and I think it was in connection to, let me just say, it was it was the Tantric Bodywork class. It was that particular one. And I really find that fascinating, because the couple that were talking there about their experience, what he had experienced actually, whenever he was talking about whenever his female partner was stroking and touching his head, and what he was experiencing was insight and revelations into the connection that he'd had with his mother and the relationship that he'd had with his mother that was crossed over. And that actually really surprised me. I don't know why, but it sort of added like a different dimension onto this for me, because I find your work fascinating, but I must admit I'm quite limited in my exposure to it. So to say that he had that sort of experience during that, and he was talking about the overwhelming sense of love and everything that he had experienced in that moment.
Yeah, the bodywork class is a class that we've been doing for years. What's interesting is that particular bodywork positions and sequences of touches and holds that we're sharing with the people put people in a remembering of some of the things that we started early in life, like when we were in the fetal position for 9 months, and so some of those positions remind people in their body embodiment of that time, and we all remember those times, but it's just hidden in the background. So sometimes we do something physical and it reminds us of something familiar.
So it's really what's activated is the sensory memory that is actually the early experience we had when we were in the womb or were infants, when our brain is not fully developed yet. So in the tantric practice, we actually want to use this because there's so much stored underneath our conscious mind. Our conscious mind is just like 5% of what we are aware of. We think, we are so, so great. We can go to the moon and all of that, which is fabulous. However, as far as humans, there's so much underneath. And why we are interested in the underneath has to do with that underneath may be in the way, in a subconscious way, maybe in the way of what I say I want, and then realizing that. So I'm trying hard for my conscious mind in the external world. Yet underneath there is something stopping me that I'm not aware of. And so the access through the skin, through being held, through breathing together as a couple, where we really cultivate the experience of becoming one, which is often so difficult to grasp intellectually, but we just drop into that and the experience arises. And so also, Gemma, something else, which is that the early experience of love was experienced with our caregivers, primary caregivers, mostly a mother or a father. It also could be anyone else who we were close. That is where we experience love, attention, a smile, feeling protected, feeling safe, or of course the opposite, not feeling safe, and needing to protect myself because I don't know when the next blow is going to come. Like my mother may react angrily. So it goes either way. And that is what we want to tap into, because there are new openings. So like for this student in the bodywork class, it was a reconnecting with his mother love. And then, of course, as grown-up people, we bring this into our life in then a conscious way, that when there is a hold where in that program where we stroke the partner like this. And we do this with the breath when Freddy exhales. And it reminds us of that early embrace when we were held. And imagine experiencing this from a partner who is totally dedicated to the receiver at this moment. Her, or if it's a woman receiving, a man giving, the giver's attention is totally on the receiver. So there is a sense of, I'm all embellished and embraced and given care to. And the breath assists us. When I synchronize my breath with Freddy and stroke like this, can you already feel, even through the airwaves here, that's rhythm and a connection that is visceral.
To be honest, just even watching you deliver that to him makes me want to receive that. Yeah. But I also, even just watching it and being in the presence of this happening, I am almost feeling as though I could bring it up an emotion, like an emotional response in me. So it is, I guess we can never really be too sure of how we will react to certain things like this. But most of us are unaware of the hidden trauma that we have, because as you say, there's only 5% that the conscious mind is aware of. So there's a lot of hidden depths within every single one of us, no matter how healed or how conscious we think we are. There's a lot to uncover.
And so all of the approaches that there are out there for people to get to what's in the way of them being happy or more fulfilled or creating what they most deeply say they want to create, very few approaches teach how to work with the life force or sexual energy. And TantraNova does. We, in our book, talk about a guy named Napoleon Hill, who wrote a book in 1938 called Think and Grow Rich. And his whole thing was about shifting people's thinking and belief to believe and think that they could be rich so that they could go out and do it. And in his book, he mentions in one section, he says, lucky is the man. That's a little patriarchal. So we say, lucky is the person who's able to use their sexual energy to create wealth. Now, his thing was wealth. But for us, it's whatever you want to create. He didn't talk about how to do it, but we do. So working with the life force of sexual energy, as we were saying, there's lots of ways to get actionable insights about, that's why I don't this, because I did that, and because I remember what happened when I was a kid there. Okay. Now, once you have that actionable insight, how do you shift it? Because that lives on the neural synaptic level, that lives in the unconscious aspect of our beingness. So when we work now with the sexual energy, with some of the distinctions, as I mentioned earlier, with breath awareness, energy awareness, and intention, in that altered state of where the sexual takes you anyway, more endorphin, serotonin, oxytocin, loving, more, connected, with those awareness of breath, energy, and intention, we are able to get more unmasked to ourselves, the frequency, the story, the beliefs around something that is something that's keeping us from that thing that we most deeply desire. And anybody in a body who's willing can get this. It's not teaching them anything new. It's giving them something, a reminder of what they've forgotten.
Yeah, because we all have the knowledge stored there. That's for sure. So we touched upon, obviously, bringing us back to our childhood and those first relationships that we have with our caregivers. How do traumas from those early years really impact on our journey with something like this? And I don't know, say, for example, I had a particularly turbulent relationship with my mother. And, I just wondered to myself, what else is trapped in there? But I'm just wondering how that would manifest if I was to enroll in one of your courses or to start undertaking this sort of work in some way. There's so many of us have trauma to our caregivers or connected to our caregivers in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I can so resonate with you, Gemma. For me, it was perhaps my mother too, but more so my father. And, when I came to Tantra, I was single. So I came to this country. I grew up, was born and raised in Germany, and came to the United States in my late 20s to do postgraduate work in music, got my doctorate in education a few years later, and then moved into management consulting. That was in the 90s, and I had gotten really good at consulting, but was miserable at relationship. I had this pattern of attracting unavailable men, and while that often was exciting, most of the time I was alone. And there came this moment of despair when I could see the trajectory, if I was not going to change that pattern, that I would end up, without lasting intimacy and love in my life. And I didn't want to leave the planet like this. And that was the time when I wanted to find a way to see what was in the way that kept me from bringing lasting intimacy into my life. And I knew somehow it was over here. It was like having a film in front of your eyes. You cannot see, there is something, but you don't know what it is. And that is when I entered my tantric studies and really take it on as a discipline versus just reading a book here or there. And what opened up for me was that I discovered that I had distrusted men. And I didn't know about that. If you had known me at the time, I was very charming, inviting the guys, reeling them in. I mean, I didn't look like a distrusting bitch. No, really not. But underneath again, there was something, and that something I could discover in the tantric healing rituals, where we go to the body, to the feelings, to the more visceral. And, once we discover, so to your question about trauma, is that while I had remembered this experience, or what came up in the ritual was remembering an experience when I was 18 years old. First boyfriend, beautiful, blissful relationship for a couple of years. And then when I was 18 years old, he asked me to have intercourse. And I said yes, although I was not ready. And Gemma, it was freakingly painful. It was so painful that I had to go to the gynecologist. The bill went to my house. My dad opened it. All hell broke loose. My dad called me a whore. the boyfriend a few weeks later left the relationship, and there I was, totally left to myself, nobody to turn to. And what we often do at these kinds of moments when we are in despair or feel helpless or powerless is that we make a decision, we draw a conclusion quickly, not in a reflected way. And for me, it was something like, see, Elsbeth, men are not there for you when you need them. And while that was so at that time, it trailed me into my young adult life and then into my adult life. And no wonder that I attracted unavailable men, because that was further proof of, see, Elsbeth, they are not there for you. That is what we do then in a very strange way. We actually create the same situation that is further evidence of what we decided when we were 2 years old, 10 years old, or for me, when I was 16 years old. And I had done work around this whole experience in therapy in my 30s. And it was quite helpful because there was someone who really listened to me, who took me seriously. So I thought it was all resolved. Yet little did I know that there was a memory on the cellular level back again to it was not accessible from my conscious mind. And that is how things opened up for me, cleared, and instead of the distrust, trust and trusting myself opened up first, trusting men in general. And then 6 months later, Freddy Zental came into my life. And I believe I would not have recognized him as a potential partner if I hadn't done my clearing work.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. It's funny because we all tell ourselves stories, don't we, right from a very young age. So as you say, whether it happened at 2 years old or whatever it happens at 22 years old, we tell a story to ourselves. And I describe it to people as that snowball that's rolling down a mountain, picking up things as it goes. So as we go through life, we start to emphasize it, or we'll pick up other distorted sort of notions in our story that all of a sudden we reach our 30s, our 40s, our 50s, and it's just completely blown out of proportion. And our worldview, our view on ourself, our view towards ourselves is so far from where it should be, that it takes quite some time to sit and pick it all apart. But by the time we get to that stage, we haven't even realized, we think, well, this is it. I don't have trauma. I don't have stuff to deal with. But like you said, it sometimes takes that big moment to realize, actually, I have a little bit of work that I need to do here.
Yeah. And so, yeah, exactly. And that's the good news is that, we all come we look into the world from this clay that we are, from all those experiences, because it starts out in the beginning, womb service. We're in the womb and we're floating. Oh my God, it's just effortless. We don't have to think about food. It's just our brains haven't totally developed at all. And then suddenly we're born, whoosh, bright lights whacked on the bottom. Some guys are getting their wee-wees cut and we're thinking, send me back, And then life happens, good days, bad days, all this stuff. And then we get to a point, as you said, that we, want to shift something that has continued to show up in our life. That's what connects us to this elegant design of the universe that goes on forever is our imagination, our capacity to visualize that. Now, how to get to it? One is to the left brain analytically, thank you for helping me understand that and actionable insights. The other is how it lives on the subconscious level. So working with sexual energy in that altered state with specific distinctions and intention allows us to get more unmasked. And that's the new thing about what we're doing. It's new and old because, whether you're doing consciousness work or not, again, this is just a wonderful energy. And for usually about 3 seconds, it's just like, wow, we're like back in the womb for a few seconds. It's just like beautiful. So for guys in these practices, they learn how to extend that orgasmic experience so that they can extend it out, riding what we call the orgasmic wave for as long as they want. And for women, it's really getting that. I mean, a lot of women have come here who maybe have never had orgasms or have a bad thought about sex, something's bad about it, or it's a shameful thing. So for women, it's about uncovering and discovering their sexual power and owning that.
Yeah, reawakening.
Reawakening, yes. We could actually teach these practices to nuns and priests if they were vowed to celibacy. It's not about the sexual act. It's about being in the energy of where it leads us, that loving, vulnerable, intimately connected, seeing ourselves in each other space.
And it's aliveness in its highest state. That is the energy. It's life force energy. And we make the distinction between sex, which is the act, and sexual energy. Sexual energy is life force energy. It shows up most of the time in a subtle state, just like right now we are speaking or listening. And then it, goes up all the way to a climactic state, ejaculatory state. And so we can learn how to play this energy like a flute, so that I can move this energy from my sexual center up into my heart, into my mind, into my spiritual self. This is when we actually become integrated. And what you earlier spoke about, Gemma, that curious, that intriguing place of coming together in the intimate sexual with the spiritual.
Yeah, this doesn't take away from all the other things you do with sex, creating life and, recreating and so on. We're just talking about how can you actually bring into your life sexual meditation.
Yeah. Which just sounds amazing. You had touched on, Freddy, there about how some women are coming into this program having never had an orgasm or, just things like that. And I can remember whenever I think back on my journey now, I was sexually active from quite a young age, but I hadn't actually orgasmed until I was in my early 20s. And even then it was accidental using like an electrical device, as many women as many women do have. And even whenever I have looked, I'm going to be 40 in January, but whenever I have looked over the majority of my adult life, there's very few times that I have reached that state of being able to orgasm with a partner. And even by myself, I have only just recently, and I'm 39 years old, and I have only just recently learned when I've been on my spiritual path and my healing journey that actually I can bring pleasure to myself and reach that stage. So through my healing, I have been uncovering more aspects of myself sexually. So what you guys are talking about, I'm just like, well, how can I get more of this? How can I be working on myself more, healing myself more, loving myself more, having that deeper, intimate connection with myself so that whenever my Freddy comes along, that I can bring that to our connection as well. And you can keep him. I'm not going to take yours away. But, it's just amazing to think about this, and whenever we think of the sex act, there is a lot of taboo. There's a lot of misconceptions and things that we're taught from a young age. And I can really see how that does shape the perception of some people, but also just our self-belief and our traumas connected to other people, like how that can really impact on our sexual energy. I'm fascinated. I think I need to enroll in one of your courses, if I'm being honest.
Online. So you can hop online and get in the class. Absolutely. That's one of the things that really has been my driving inspiration about this work is the possibility of all of us learning how to be in what that sexual energy leads us to. When you bring consciousness to the sexual, the kernel of that energy, creativity and pleasure, starts showing up in areas of life that seem completely unrelated to sex, just in the simple process of living. So if I'm doing consciousness work in that altered state, I'm so deeply connected and familiar with that feeling that when I'm just out and about, it's all energy, and I have a thought, oh, I hate my job. 30 more years of retirement. That thought has a cascading effect, a total felt sense. And I'm really aware of that. So the thought and even the conversation, it will shift from, I love and I'm grateful for the work that I do and blah, 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 or I change the work that I do. So the idea of our lives being this precious gem, this precious opportunity to dance, and for us to dance with others and seeing ourselves in each other. I mean, it's really about peace on earth, if I really get existential with it, but people are like, I just want to have a better orgasm. What are you talking about, peace on earth?
Yeah, it is. I'm absolutely fascinated. So obviously, as a single person then enrolling in your course, which there's so many of us at the minute, I'm a psychic medium and I get so many people coming to me wanting help with their love life. When is she coming? When is he coming? What does he or she feel for me? Oh. Is this connection going to go anywhere? Love really does make the world go round. However, I do recognize as well, and it's trying to educate people that actually we need to really love ourselves first in order to be able to really love someone else and receive the sort of love from someone else that we want to be able to receive. And I do wonder how your programs can help somebody that is single, that isn't in a deeply committed relationship, but is eager to work towards that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so of course, early on, we looked at that because different people come with different concerns. Even in that, that some people come because they may not know about it, but they are disconnected. The heart is disconnected from their sex, or their sex is disconnected from their heart. Mm-hmm. They don't know that initially. So some people come to do sexual healing. Some people to come to tap deeper into that intimate connection with the self. Or when partners come, the intimate connection with each other, or they may be at the brink of divorce, and may come to us as the last resort because marriage counseling just didn't assist them in the way that they could shift. For individuals, for single people, and I, as I shared earlier, I started my tantric journey as a single woman, is that we have workshops and programs, also private programs, where I work with women only. I call the workshop Awaken to Your Feminine Essence, and the private program, which can be done either on Zoom over 3 months, or if people are local, they can come here for in-person sessions. And Freddy has a men's workshop called Men, Sex, and Power that it works in the same way. It's hybrid, so people can participate on Zoom or, be here in person. And then our couples workshops where you come with a partner. If you're single, then you can bring a partner, which doesn't have to be your committed partner, or you get paired up with a practice partner. And that is how I learned. I worked with practice partners, and it was mighty powerful because, Gemma, so what shows up with a practice partner is very much the same what would show up with a committed partner, because the body doesn't know the difference, so I get triggered in the same place, in a certain emotion comes up, or, a certain thought comes up, which is just because the system over here is triggered. And if this is a practice partner or a beloved, it's still the same board that can get triggered, So the beauty then is that I get the chance to work through the trigger, so I can heal what's underneath and then bring myself, like for me, healing the distrust. That was a huge thing that had closed off having lasting intimacy and love in my life. So sometimes it's a smaller trigger, sometimes it's a huge trigger, a huge thing that permeates our whole being. Just imagine to clear that. So yes, I often recommend, like when a woman comes to us and she wants to do is by herself, to actually deepen the relationship with herself. And then the Awaken to Your Feminine Essence workshop or that program, private program, is perfect.
Okay. And sorry, excuse me. So what sort of transformation do you typically see in the women that do come, or what do they see within themselves? And even the men as well, because there are both men and women that listen to this show. So what sort of changes can they experience? If we look at the men first, actually.
In general, a lot of men report that, so in the first day, there are a lot of actionable insights, a lot of processes where they get, looks into their unconscious stuff around what their intentions are that they've set out to get out of the workshop. Between the first and the second day, there's a homework practice that they learn, which is a self-love practice. And this is what we do with what you do in our workshops with couples as well. But this is how you do it with yourself. This is sexual meditation. And for a lot of guys, they report that, they had trouble being their own lover. They don't have a problem giving, unabashedly to their partners, and love to please, but to please themselves and be open and tender and loving to themselves is difficult, reported by many men who do the workshop. One of the things for guys is the emotional expression that starts to broaden. For most guys, we're socialized and modeled to be okay with two expressions of emotion. That's fucking or fighting. But that tenderness and being nurturing and our crying is not like, okay, even though we all feel those feelings. And for guys, when they are in the love, in sex, that's one of the few places that they can totally be free of that construct. So in the workshops, they go through a whole process of emotional familiarity and process work. So they're able to start to get a sense of how, stuck they are in a lot of these places. So that's a general, but each guy comes in with their own specific thing that they're working on. Either they're in a relationship, want it better, or they're out and they want a relationship or work that's inspiring or a place that's fulfilling or whatever it might be. So,
So perhaps we could say that a key opening for men is to connect their sexual center with their heart. So in the sexual meditation, which is the self-love, where he is the lover to himself.
Different from masturbation.
Yeah, which is very much goal-oriented to get to the destination. Mm-hmm. It's the same for women, by the way. And self-love is really about the journey, to listen, to feel, to touch, to suspend, any kind of having to get somewhere. And then experiences can open up, or even the tenderness of connecting with my loving self. Mm. There may be tears, there may be sadness, there may be joy. So if I cannot be deeply intimate with myself, how can I be deeply intimate with another? It always starts with self. And so I would say for men, what they get out of it is this opening that Freddy spoke about of their their emotional self, that because even feeling anger for guys, many men live in suppressed anger, like at the edge. Because, again, anger can be expressed in fighting, be it on the battlefield or in sports. By the way, in sports, men become so expressive, unlike in any other area in their life. Like they touch each other asses, like American football.
We cry, we emote, we get very emotional.
And they hug each
That's where
other,
it's okay. After you've been beating each other up or killing each other in the killing fields.
So they can express both that beating up, that of course has some anger energy behind it, like competitive energy, and then the winning and the being connected as a team. So, and to be willing to feel tenderness, to feel sadness, to feel helplessness, which means to be vulnerable to myself, and then in relationship, be it a friend or be it a beloved, or a child, who learned from their dad that a man can be vulnerable. Not my dad. He was stern, he was strict, he was harsh. That doesn't mean that was not underneath, but to express it. And so then as kids, we are yearning for it, and then we yearn for this in a partner. And then when we don't get it, we don't know how to generate it. The other aspect for men that produces enormous openings that they report about is to channel their sexual aroused energy up into their heart. When a man learns that and can do that, he becomes more integrated. Otherwise, he is so focused on the sexual center and the lust and the drive, because it's based in testosterone energy, which is, the quick hormone, rises quickly, gets easily excited, and then drops quickly. So there he can really imbue his love, his heart energy with this wonderful testosterone energy. So being more integrated, I consider this the maturing of the man, and it needs to be cultivated. This practice doesn't come naturally, but it opens up whole new vistas for the man, both for himself and in relationship. And then when he's connected in his heart and he's in relationship, I can feel the heart opening. Most women, when they want to connect with their beloved, no matter if they are heterosexual or homosexual or bisexual, the one who is more in their feminine, when she wants to connect, she starts feeling it in her heart center. Most men, or the one who is in their masculine, they start feeling it in their sexual center. It's nothing good or bad about it. It's just different loci we start feeling from when we want to connect. So then we are like two ships in the night. He's coming from here, I'm coming from there. We both want to connect, but it goes like this. In the tantric practice, the man learns to move up with the breath, this wonderful sexual energy aroused, or even just a slight feeling of it, into his heart. Mm-hmm. When he's open in his heart, my heart opens. Mm. And when my heart opens, my sexual center opens. And then we have a circuit. And we breathe with this and we become connected. Also, this is why I say for most men, it's really integrating the sex with the heart. For most women, it's connecting the heart with their sex, or the yoni, as it's called in Sanskrit. Yoni means the sexual center of a woman, and it's translated into sacred space. Imagine, Gemma, if you and I had been introduced to our sexual center as a sacred space, probably our sexual trajectory may have gone differently.
Yeah. I completely agree. And how would this journey differ then for a woman who is coming to this? Is it, does she still experience a lot of the emotional openings that a man would, and those discoveries of, oh, this is, something that is repressed, or is it a similar sort of healing journey in that regard? I understand how they both sort of center in on different energies, but would the journey still be similar for a single person in terms of the transformation for a single female who is on this journey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for the woman, most women are much more connected with their emotions. We cry easily. We jump out of our sadness easily. We can go back and forth. One moment we can be rational, the next moment very emotional. It's very confusing often to men, because they are not,
built the same way neurosynaptically.
Yeah. However, for us, it's like, back and forth. It is the vulnerability part is just as important to us women, because no matter if we are a man or a woman, none of us wants to feel vulnerable, because we have vulnerability associated with helplessness and being weak. It's actually the opposite, to be vulnerable with myself, really tuning or perhaps admitting to how I feel. These uncomfortable feelings, like when I feel helpless, when I don't know, it's very difficult for me to ask for help, because it could, mean that I'm stupid, like I may have wired it like that, or that I'm not good enough, or that I'm incompetent. And to shift out of that is first to acknowledge the way I feel to myself, and to be with that, and to be with the feelings of helplessness, particularly in the realm of intimacy and love and my sexual self, because there may have been, situations when I felt really helpless when I was a kid, or in my teenage years, perhaps having a crush on a boy and then being rejected, and all of that, it comes up over and over again. And so the work also lies in going towards these feelings that may keep me from being my authentic self, so that I can love fully, love myself, and then love another. And so the other part is for the woman to reawaken her wonderful, luscious feminine energy. If we look at the male energy, goes up quickly, gets easily excited, and drops quickly. Feminine sexual energy rises slowly, hangs out. We don't know if it's coming or going. However, when it's reawakened, it can come up to a plateau and then stay on that plateau for a long time, multiple orgasms, orgasmic waves. And for many women, I also teach a self-love practice in my feminine work with women that they do as a homework. And they get to be the beloved, the lover they wish to encounter. They become that lover to themselves of the beloved. So I'm the beloved and the lover at the same time. Like I touch myself, so my giving hand is the lover, my receiving hand is the beloved. Very different sensations on the back of my hand than giving with my fingertips. And to become aware of and how I feel in certain places in my body, stay there, breathe into it, because that is really the breath of life that makes the sensations more colorful and visible. And many, I would say a number of women really come back the next day and say, I had a really hard time staying with myself for 45 minutes or an hour without being so goal-oriented, going to that climax. Now, with women, I say go with the flow. If you go towards the climax, it's wonderful, but you don't make yourself climaxing. Very different, you are in the flow, and then it may arise, and then go with it and breathe into it and breathe through it.
No expectation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Open so much up. Also the other way around, that some women come back and say,
sorry, bless me.
Right? That, I felt so much pleasure and joy just being with myself, hanging out with myself, giving to myself. I didn't even know that I liked certain touches or what my yoni liked, And one woman in the last workshop, she came back and said, I just held my yoni for 20 minutes and I breathed into her. I had never done that before. And, then she said, and then the next day when I was with my beloved, I had an orgasmic experience, like very easily, that I had never had before. It's like this connection with myself, being in the breath, opened her up. Now, that is not the goal, but that is can be a consequence, that the ease of flow, is just available.
It's just amazing. I'm very, very intrigued by all of this. This has actually been quite an eye opener for me, and just even realizing how it can help us so much on our healing journey. And as you say, it's about developing that strong connection to us in order so we can open up and have that connection with another person. And that, I think, is something that so many of us are missing out on, I would say.
Yeah. And there are then, of course, very specific practices for partnership, where we also use the sexual energy as a way to open something up, and where there are rituals where one is dedicated to the woman, where the woman is the receiver and the man is the giver, and then the other way around, not the same day, so that the one who is in the receiver role can stay there even beyond the completion of the ritual, because things may come up, not in the ritual itself, but a little later, half an hour later, or in the middle of the night. We want to give that space. And the beauty of these giving and receiving rituals is that we tap into a space of receiving that is not available in mutual lovemaking, which is wonderful. But there we go in and out of giving and receiving, and they are very different frequencies, energies. Giving is the masculine, the yang energy, no matter if I'm a man or a woman. Receiving is the yin energy, the feminine energy, the opening, And can you imagine a man receiving and the woman is the giver?
Yeah, the construct of the ritual as the giver and receiver gives the receiver, for instance, an opportunity to tap into what is possible in this sexual altered state, particularly as it pertains to their intentions, because crying might arise, sadness or anger or blah or orgasm. It's not the typical thing, this is going to feel good and let's do it to feel good for each other, which is great. It's using, again, that altered state to get to something that we don't normally get to, hidden in the background. So that's really the unique thing, that you don't want to leave this life without learning these practices.
Yeah, and darling, how is it for men to receive?
Right. Well, yeah, for a man, one of the things we get in touch with is really how this lingam, this penis, which lingam is a Sanskrit term for penis. It means wand of light. No, much more endearing than dickhead, right?
I like wand of light. I like it.
So, for guys and all the variations of Tantra there are, one of the primary edicts is to learn to separate ejaculation from orgasm. And in that process, men learn how, or they get a glimpse of how this energy has had them from day one. Look, Ma, no hands, a little guy with a little erection. And then as full adults, we're run by the little head our whole life. So guys really start to, uncouple, possessiveness, jealousy, not loved, being, open to love. All of those, sexual thing is loaded, shame and fear and guilt and its stories. So all of that is what is available for the man to start to get unencumbered by, if you will. Mm-hmm. So that is more freedom, more choice. Choice starts to open up.
Well, I was going to just say, it sounds like actually it would bring a lot of positives for the men that are primarily driven by, where can I put it?
Once you go Tantra, you'll never go back. You're a good Tantra man, you'll never go back. I'm telling you.
Well, honestly, I think I'm partially on my way there. I feel like I've started my journey today.
That's right.
This has been incredibly eye-opening and very welcoming, I think, from my own educational standpoint.
Oh.
So obviously you have a lot of online groups. You do have groups. You do online groups. You have your one-to-one work that you do. Do you also see people in person as well? I know you're based in Chicago.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. And then do you travel much? Do you get to see people in person much as well? I know obviously you do various talks and
over the years we've been on faculty at a lot of the major transformational institutes in the world. We've worked all over the world, and now we like it when we can work right here at home. Though we will travel, if a situation occurs, but we don't go after it like we used to.
Yeah, we got invited to do a couples retreat in the Maldives by a former client who brings her corporate clients, because she had such a huge opening in her life, in her connection with her love self when she did work with us a couple of years ago. And she has a very thriving business, and she said, I want my clients to experience this with their partners. So in early 2025, we're going to go to the Maldives.
Yeah, it's
amazing.
Nice when we don't have to organize a retreat.
Yeah.
Last year we did a retreat in Costa Rica. It's beautiful, but it's more work when you do it yourself and you do all that. So this would be
I can imagine. Yeah. And the Maldives, absolutely amazing as well. How wonderful.
Yeah.
So is there anything that you would like to share with the listeners today, or is there anything that you would like to share about what's coming up, for example, for you guys and how people can get involved with you?
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much, Gemma. So the question how you can reach us if you want to learn more, there are two ways. One is, of course, at our website, TantraNova.com, TantraNova, new Tantra, TantraNova.com. And there, on the homepage, there is our book. When you scroll down, you can order it there, both in hard copy or audio format. There are programs all laid out, workshops, private programs for the couple, for the individual, for the single person. And we also want to gift you with a video class that is called Introduction to Sexual Meditation, so that out of the conversation, you can actually learn a couple of practices. They are foundational in terms of leading towards sexual meditation. Without these foundational practices, which really deal with the subtle energy, if we don't master that, we cannot bring it to the aroused energy. So if you like to pick up this video class, I understand, Gemma, you will have it on the show notes, the link.
Yeah. That would be brilliant. That's amazing to be able to offer that to people. I will definitely be taking that up, but I know that there will be people as well that would be very eager to watch that. And yes, I will be including that in the show notes so people can access that pretty easily. So regardless of whether you're watching on YouTube or you're listening on Spotify or Apple, check the show notes for the link.
Thank you.
That's
so
brilliant.
much.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. That has definitely been enlightening. And I look forward to speaking to you again in the future, because I'm confident that I will be.
Oh, yeah. We look forward to it.
Oh, thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you're able to, please rate the show or leave feedback on your chosen podcast player. You can also visit the podcast website. Simply head across to thehappypsychic.show, and you can also find me on the socials by searching for @GemmaLonsdaleGuru.